Göbekli Tepe turned out to be what you think it might have been, where are the metal tools? Where are the writing, the examples of writing?
The very place the world has long considered the origin of human civilization is now raising questions. Questions whose answers we may not be ready to hear. Göbekli Tepe, nestled in the mountains of southeastern Turkey, was until recently considered the oldest place of worship in history. But now, the story is suddenly changing. When these 12,000-year-old stone pillars were examined millimeter by millimeter using modern AI and 3D laser scanning technology, they appeared to be more than just stones. There was something about them that seemed out of place. The precision was excessive. The patterns seemed overly deliberate. And, most strangely, they didn't feel like an ordinary religious site. The question here is more frightening than, who built them? Why were they built? Are these pillars simply telling a story from the past? Or are they left behind for another time? When the AI examined their entire arrangement, it revealed something that stunned even scientists. Right now, we're just standing at the door. The real story lies within. In this video, we'll explore the truths revealed by those AI scans, which will keep you thinking until the very last second, because some truths are simply not worth knowing at once. Before continuing, please subscribe to the channel to be the first to see such videos. Imagine thousands of years ago, when humans had no iron tools, no wheels for driving, no well-established language for reading and writing, and no methods of farming. In that era, some people were working with heavy stones that even today's technology cannot easily handle. This is a question that has been troubling archaeologists for years. And these T-shaped limestone pillars, estimated to weigh anywhere from 10 tons to 50 tons, are astonishing not just that these stones were cut, but that they were transported to a high hill and placed in the exact right place. This entire site is located on a hill near Şanlıurfa in southeastern Turkey. When excavations began here in 1995, no one could have imagined that such an ancient and massive structure would be hidden beneath the ground. As the soil gradually receded, an entire religious complex was revealed, dating back approximately 11,600 years, or about 9,600 BCE. By comparison, Stonehenge and the Egyptian pyramids were built thousands of years later. And the most astonishing thing is that all this was built at a time when humans hadn't even made pottery. Agriculture hadn't yet begun, and metalworking was a far cry. And according to current understandings of human development, such construction was considered impossible at that time. At least 20 circular structures have been found at this site, with massive T-shaped pillars surrounding and centering them. These aren't rough stones, but perfectly carved monoliths, reaching up to 18 feet in height. They feature intricate carvings of animals like lions, foxes, snakes, scorpions, and vultures that would make even modern artisans think twice. Some pillars bear figures resembling human hands, joined together at the front as if the stones were depicting human forms. The official story is that nomadic hunter-gatherers of the time gathered here for religious purposes, cut the pillars with stone tools, somehow dragged them up the hill, and erected them. Then, around 8,000 BCE, they deliberately covered the entire complex with earth to preserve them. But when engineers saw the entire structure, the story became more complicated. Even today, lifting and erecting a 50-ton stone without cranes and heavy machinery is extremely difficult. This begs the question, how was all this accomplished without metal tools, wheels, and modern technology? This is why, when new research and claims related to this site emerged in 2025, the entire archaeological world paused for a moment, as it no longer remained mere history, but a profound mystery that defied human understanding. This whole story began when a joint team of German and Turkish researchers decided to explore the limestone quarries around Göbekli Tepe more deeply than ever before. The German and Turkish scientists thought that if they were to understand how such massive pillars were formed, their story would begin at the stone quarry. With this thought in mind, they used ground-penetrating radar and high-quality 3D laser scanning. This resulted in a digital model of the entire site, with extremely detailed recordings of the stone surface, tool marks, and even the depth of cuts. This survey identified more than 350 places where stones had been cut, within an area of approximately 2 kilometers around the main temple. The scene that emerged next shocked everyone. Many T-shaped pillars were found lying in the quarries, incompletely formed. Some were even half attached to the rock, as if work had been abruptly stopped. One of these, the pillar, is called QP47. Approximately 70% of it had been carved from the rock, but further processing was never completed. It's estimated to weigh around 65 tons, making it the heaviest pillar ever found at Göbekli Tepe. It wasn't lifted or moved. It simply lay there, as if reminding us of the limitations of that era. This is where the research really took off. Scientists fed all the scans, photos, and measurements into an AI-based system specifically designed to recognize hidden patterns in stone carvings and carvings. When computer vision began to process this data, the results were even more intriguing than expected. Microscopic examination and 3D surface analysis revealed that not just one, but at least 3 different methods were used to create the pillars. The first method turned out to be quite familiar. It involved hammerstones made of hard stone, which slowly chipped away at the limestone. They were hammered into shape. This technique is called pecking and has been observed at many other ancient sites. So, there was nothing surprising about this part. But the story doesn't end there. Another technique got the scientists thinking. At the places where the pillars were being separated from the bedrock, traces of extremely thin and perfectly straight cut lines were found. These cuts were only 2 to 3 millimeters wide and ran in a straight line for more than a meter, without deviating. Their curvature over this length was less than 1 millimeter. According to Dr. Jens, a senior member of the research team, such precision far exceeds what is expected from ordinary stone tools. It points to either a highly controlled and advanced technology that we don't yet fully understand, or a cutting method that is completely different from today's assumptions. And this is where the mystery of Göbekli Tepe deepens. The AI investigation first clarified one simple thing. The cuts and marks that we see at Göbekli Tepe, looking at the quarries at Tepe, they don't match any known Neolithic tools. The system compared them to thousands of older tool signatures, but came up empty. This means the patterns seen here don't resemble any recorded Stone Age technology. The story then becomes more complicated. AI-based scanning revealed that in many places the stone had not just been cut, but had been broken by alternating heat and cold. These marks were initially invisible to the human eye, but spectral analysis clearly revealed burn marks and discolored limestone. Chemical testing also revealed that the stone had been heated to 400 to 600 degrees Celsius, enough to alter its internal structure. Now a theory emerges. It is believed that the craftsmen first heated selected areas of the stone with fire and then suddenly poured cold water over it. This rapid change would cause the stone to crack along specific lines, allowing it to be broken under control. While the method sounds simple, it is actually extremely difficult. Thermal shock often causes stone to break uncontrollably unless you have a deep understanding of its layers, natural cracks, and density differences. Today's artisans are able to do this because they have access to geological data, extensive experience, and prior tests. And this is where the biggest question arises. Should we assume that early hunter-gatherers already possessed such advanced understanding? There are no practice pillars, no traces of incomplete or failed attempts, and no evidence of a learning process. The pillars at Göbekli Tepe appear as if their creators had complete knowledge from day one. The AI discovered another surprising finding. When a timeline was created by combining tool marks from different quarries, the cuts on some pillars appeared to be hundreds of years older than the temples. This estimate was made by comparing weathering of the stone's surface. The difference is so stark that it cannot be ignored. If the pillars were completed long before the temples, the question arises, where were they placed then? Were there older structures that have not yet been discovered? Or are we misreading the dating of Göbekli Tepe? The most surprising thing came at the end. I measured the quality of the stonework over time. The results were contrary to our expectations. The oldest layers contained the largest, most precise, and most intricately carved pillars. In later layers, the pillars became smaller, the carvings simpler, and the detail diminished. This suggests that technology didn't advance, but rather, something was lost over time. And this contradictory story makes Göbekli Tepe different from other sites and even more mysterious. If you look closely, the story of Göbekli Tepe isn't exactly what we would normally expect from an emerging civilization. Normally, people gradually learn, make mistakes, and their work improves with each generation. But here, the opposite appears to be true. It seems as if the highest level of work was accomplished in the first phase, and those who followed simply tried to imitate it. They were reusing a site they didn't fully understand, and ultimately buried it in the ground. It seems as if they were making a last-ditch effort to preserve a tradition and technology that was being lost. Comparing this pattern to other ancient civilizations, the difference becomes even more clear. In Egypt, the pyramids became more precise and robust over time. In Greece, each generation refined the architecture. But at Göbekli Tepe, the story seems to go backwards. The heaviest, most intricate, and most magnificent pillars are found in the oldest layers. In later layers, the work becomes smaller and simpler. But it's as if someone suddenly put a brake on human knowledge, and all subsequent efforts have become a mere struggle to remember what came before. The AI took the next step, not only looking at how the pillars were made, but also trying to understand how such heavy and intricately carved pillars might have been transported to their location. The research revealed that some quarries were only 100 meters away from the site, while others stretched for nearly 2 kilometers, with varying elevations throughout. The common explanation is that the pillars were pulled using wooden sleds, round wooden rollers, and ropes made of plant fibers, involving hundreds of people. This is supported by examples from experimental archaeology, where hundreds of volunteers have moved multi-ton stones in a similar manner over short distances. But the AI found a major flaw here. The stones moved in modern experiments were simple, thick blocks, not the intricately carved T-shaped pillars of Göbekli Tepe. These pillars bear relief carvings, which in some places protrude 5 to 10 centimeters. These relief figures of animals and symbols are extremely delicate. The AI ran thousands of physics simulations on different transportation methods and found that if such pillars were dragged over rocky paths with ropes and rollers, the probability of these carvings breaking or wearing out reached a 97% chance. Even today, special cradles, padding, and controlled lifting systems are used to transport carved stones, as even the slightest misstep could damage the details. But here's the strangest thing. On 3D scans of the pillars at Göbekli Tepe show no damage to the carvings during transport. The details are still as clear and sharp as they were when they were carved. This leads the AI to propose 2 possibilities. Either the carvings were made after the pillars were erected, which seems unlikely because some are in places that are nearly impossible to reach once the pillars were erected. Or the builders had a method of transporting the pillars that perfectly preserved the carvings, a method we have yet to identify. The AI's physics models raise further questions here. A 50-ton T-shaped pillar is no ordinary pillar. Its shape doesn't distribute the weight evenly. The upper crossbar alone can weigh 10 to 15 tons, making the pillar extremely unstable during lifting or erection. Working with such unbalanced weight is a challenge even for modern machines. This is why Göbekli Tepe seems more than just an archaeological site, but rather a question whose answer goes beyond our current understanding. The AI first tested the claim that the pillars were slid into pre-dug pits and then erected using ropes, earthen ramps, and levers. The computer simulated the entire process at a structural level. The results were somewhat surprising. Slowly straightening a 50-ton T-shaped pillar from a flat surface requires not only strength, but also extremely strong anchor points. The lateral force generated is equivalent to the weight of several modern cars being pulled together. The AI model clearly showed that trees, rocks, or any ordinary natural support could not withstand this pressure. And this means that if this method was used, there would have to be either specially designed anchor stones or some kind of counterweight system. However, no trace of such engineering was found on the site. No heavy stones for tying ropes, no pits where counterweights were placed. Without these essential things, the method being described does not match the evidence found on the ground. The AI then focused on the strength of the ropes. The strongest ropes used at that time were made of flax, hemp, or animal skin, and their breaking strength is well known in engineering today. Supporting a weight of 50 tons would have required either extremely thick ropes, nearly impossible to handle and pull simultaneously, or dozens of ropes working in perfect coordination. There was no room for error. If even one rope broke, the entire pillar could collapse, destroying years of carving in an instant. But surprisingly, no such incident was seen on the entire site. Not a single broken pillar was found anywhere among the more than 20 circles and 200 pillars. It doesn't seem like they ever made a major mistake. And this is where the AI discovered something that made the story even more strange. The neural network measured the depth and size of the socket, the pit, beneath each pillar. It was observed how deeply each pillar was sunk into the ground. The result was clear. The holes were not identical. Each socket was designed uniquely for that particular pillar to properly balance the uneven weight of its T-shape. Such precise custom planning seems impossible without mathematical understanding and prior calculations, and it far exceeded our expectations of that era. And then the AI focused on something that was right in front of everyone's eyes, yet no one had seen it this way. A pattern recognition system trained on astronomy data analyzed the distance between pillars, the direction of circular circles, and the position of specific carved symbols. The resulting pattern was so precise and mathematically balanced that the researchers initially thought there was a glitch in the software. But repeated checks kept returning the same result. And this is where Göbekli Tepe transforms from a mere stone site into a profoundly intellectual question, the answer to which seems to transcend modern understanding. The AI's investigation first revealed a surprising finding. When the central points of the three oldest circles were connected, they formed a perfectly equal triangle. Surprisingly, even at a distance of hundreds of feet, all three sides were equal to within an inch. Creating such a layout required not just guesswork, but also accurate land measurements, a grasp of distance, and a strong grasp of geometry. And all this was accomplished by people who supposedly possessed neither measuring instruments nor a way to write numbers. Yet their design is at a level comparable to that seen much later in the advanced mathematics of the Greeks. The AI then transformed the way we view the carvings. It began to interpret the animal figures not as art or decoration, but as a connection to the sky. When the research team compared the direction and location of these carvings with ancient sky data, the results left the research team speechless. The animals carved on the pillars corresponded not to characters from a fairy tale, but to star clusters. Not to the sky today, but to the sky as it might have appeared thousands of years ago. The fox corresponds to a particularly bright star. The scorpion corresponds to the constellation still known as Scorpius, and the vulture sits in the direction we know as Sagittarius. But the matter doesn't end there. The AI also realized that these stars weren't randomly displayed. The entire setup pointed to a specific date and a specific moment. When the computer reconstructed the sky at that time, the date settled on approximately 12,800 years ago. This is the same period when the Earth experienced sudden, significant changes: severe cold, devastating floods, the extinction of many animal species, and a massive human population. It is believed that a major disaster from the sky at that time altered the course of the world. This is where a particular pillar, known today as the vulture stone, becomes even more significant. It depicts a vulture hovering over a headless man, surrounded by other animals and strange symbols. Initially, it was thought to be religious or ritualistic art, but the AI's astronomical investigation suggests otherwise. This seems to be no mere fantasy, but a memorial of a real event, a moment etched into stone when something from the sky struck the Earth. And then the AI discovered a final, even more disturbing pattern. Machine learning discovered that these carvings didn't just speak of a single disaster. Certain symbols were repeated, certain patterns appeared similar in different locations, and the distance between the pillars also showed a mathematical relationship. All of this suggests that the creators weren't simply remembering a past disaster, but were also leaving a warning for the future, as if to suggest that such disasters return in a fixed cycle, part of a cosmic rhythm, and that if a future civilization could understand this, perhaps preparations could be made for the next time. The AI's calculations first detected a very strange link. The distance and placement of the markings on the pillars appeared to correspond to a long-term astronomical cycle, a cycle in which the Earth's axis slowly wobbles, taking approximately 25,920 years to complete a full rotation. It's generally believed that such detailed astronomical understanding was recorded much later, during the time of ancient Greek astronomers. But here, the same information appears hidden in the stones. This suggests that the creators not only knew that a major disaster was imminent, but also understood that such events recur, not like the weather, but over very long timescales. Now, consider what this means. These people don't seem to be steeped in superstition. On the contrary, they seem to be trying to preserve the essentials. A clear message to future civilizations. It has happened before, it will happen again, and if you can understand, be prepared. This is where the most frightening part of the AI report begins. If their calculations were correct, and the cycle they recorded in stone is real, then according to that timeline, we could be approaching a turning point in that same cosmic cycle within the next few decades. Now, this is frightening because it's based not on a story, but on a pattern. And before anyone dismisses this as exaggeration, consider another discovery. Around 8,000 BCE, Göbekli Tepe was deliberately covered with soil. This wasn't a half-baked job. Thousands of tons of soil and debris were carefully added. AI examined the layers of fill and found that utmost care was taken to ensure the structure wasn't damaged. This wasn't vandalism, but a salvage effort. Why would anyone bury something they had built? something they had invested generations in. Perhaps it was because they realized their society was falling apart. Their knowledge was about to be lost, and, most importantly, it needed to be preserved for posterity. The AI also discovered another phenomenon, which research teams are still working to understand. A clear decline in work techniques over time is evident. The earliest quarries display the most advanced methods, the same use of thermal shock, the same extremely precise cutting, seemingly impossible with ordinary stone tools. But in later sites, the work becomes more crude, more holes, less precision, as if someone remembers the method, but the full understanding is slowly slipping away. This entire pattern points to one thing. At Göbekli Tepe, we are witnessing not the rise of a civilization, but its gradual decline, and the final message hidden in the stones that they intended to send across time. When we piece together the full story of Göbekli Tepe, it becomes more than just an archaeological site, but one of the greatest questions facing human history. Here, we see not a civilization that was slowly learning, but one that already knew a great deal and then lost that knowledge. The precision of the stones, the balance of the pillars, the depth of the carvings, the geometry, and the understanding of the heavens all suggest that the builders were far ahead of their time. They weren't just building temples, they were locking information in stone. The picture that emerges with the help of AI is even more profound. It's clear that Göbekli Tepe wasn't simply abandoned, but was buried with thought, effort, and intention. This doesn't seem like a sign of defeat, but rather a decision, as if they knew they could no longer care for the site, so it was best to preserve it for the future. This is the same thought we use today when creating time capsules. The only difference is that they did this work with stone, clay, and the patience of thousands of years. Most importantly, the pattern seen here forces us to consider whether human history progresses in a straight line, or is it a series of ups and downs? The best work at Göbekli Tepe was done early and then deteriorated over time. This is a completely different story from the one we are taught in school textbooks. Perhaps human knowledge is repeatedly created, destroyed, and then re-emerged. If these stones indeed contain a memory of a great disaster and a warning for the future, then Göbekli Tepe not only tells us about the past, but also forces us to consider the present and the future. This place reminds us that technology and knowledge are not always permanent. If circumstances change, everything can be lost. Ultimately, perhaps this is the true message of Göbekli Tepe. Humanity knew much in the past, much has been lost. And if we don't try to learn from history, the same story could repeat itself. It's not just a stone structure. It's a silent message sent across time, asking us this question even today. Are we listening? If you enjoy such mysterious and thought-provoking videos, subscribe to the channel now to be the first to receive every video on history, science, and unheard truths.